sometimes in this human experience, we have to know darkness very well to not ever want to be there again. I'd love to share a little bit about how I got here. I think it's very important to maybe share the fact that we're not alone. We're all going through something. We all have a story, and it's that story and those trials that become a testimony. And it's important to share that. Sometimes when people see that you're doing well or that you're feeling well, they sometimes don't know everything that we had to go through to get there. And if I can share my story, and if somebody is wanting to kind of listen and take bits and pieces of it and use it for their own journey, then that's part of my mission too. I actually been thinking about that the last couple of weeks after some things I've been processing through some ayahuasca ceremonies I had recently. And I'm like, how far does my story go? And I kept thinking it went as far back as maybe 5 years ago when I went through a very traumatic separation from my son's father. But and we'll get to that. But I feel like I started thinking about it. I'm like, my human experience started very traumatic from birth. And I was sitting with that for a little while because I didn't realize that for 35 years, I've kind of been fighting and needing strength for this life. So 35 years ago, when I was born through an emergency C-section. And the doctors told my mother that they didn't think I was going to make it, so they had to CPR me as a newborn. Beautifully enough, I was born on Resurrection Sunday. So that's very significant for me. I feel like maybe that's when my journey started. And then when they brought me back, they told her that I was most likely going to have brain damage because I had been without oxygen for a very long time in the womb, and then until I was brought back. So they told her to prepare for me to have cerebral palsy because it's a very common thing that can happen when the baby doesn't have enough oxygen. And I don't have either of those things. Thank goodness. I'm grateful. And ever since, every couple of years throughout my life, I've experienced other types of traumatic situations. And I am the oldest of two. And I kind of had to grow up in these two cultures, in my Mexican family and being in the US here. Although I was born here, I kind of had to hold up my family like throughout my whole life and help my parents with the language barriers and help them do a lot of work that as a child I probably shouldn't have been able to. Like I feel like I didn't get to enjoy childhood as much because I had a lot of responsibilities on my plate. And I had always questioned life. That's kind of how I got started a little bit earlier on kind of questioning life, and like there has to be more than what this is. And I would ask these questions from a very young age, 10, 12, 15. I would ask my mother, like, why is there so much suffering? Why? It's simple, but why is this happening? And it's almost like it felt, and still does, like I was coming from another place and coming here in this body and seeing all this disaster. And I'm just like, wait a minute, like where I come from, this doesn't happen. But I couldn't understand those things from a very young age. But I was in so much pain seeing things. And my mom would say, well, things happen. And I'm like, but why would God let things happen? And I would have questions for her that sometimes she wasn't able to understand. I would have a lot of, I still do, a lot of prophetic dreams, a lot of visions, and while I'm awake, in my sleep, and all different types of ways. So I would say I had a lot of extra sensorial things going on, but my parents were never prepared for that. So they would push it off as, hey, it's a coincidence, don't worry about it, it's okay. But I'm like, no, this is something more. There's something more here, and I can't explain it. Moved to Texas in 2014 alone. I was 24 at the time. I followed my son's father. We didn't have our son at the time. So I moved after having a long distance relationship with him. And I would say 2014 was the year where the journey started, because I started diving deeper. It started by me seeing a lot of number sequences. Like, it started with 1111, and I was repeatedly seeing them everywhere. And it was 1111 first, and 333, which is the last three of my phone number. Just a lot. And I'm like, this is really weird. I'm starting to see this a lot. I started Googling. I started going crazy. I'm like, man, am I going crazy? Like, because there were other things happening, to the point where it was really freaky. So I started Googling, like, why are you seeing 1111? And I just kept Googling more and more. I'm like, okay, this might be it. This might be the reason why I've been weird my whole life. Let's dig in more. And so I started slowly I'm like, okay, so me questioning life, it wasn't like a mistake. There's more to this. And I started diving in more and more and more. And 2020, which is when I separated from my son's father, it was an abusive, narcissistic relationship. That's what kind of brought me to the climax of what this whole experience really, or to find the door to this whole human experience. My son was 6 months old when I left his father. And shortly, 2 months later, the pandemic started. So I was taking care of an infant, working from home. Our office shut down at the time, pandemic going on. And the first weekend, I gave my son over to his father. After that weekend, I was in a very dark place, very, very depressed, had suicidal thoughts. Because I was in so much pain of losing the relationship, of having to be separated from my 6-month-old, even for a week, and it was so catastrophic. And even though I didn't want to take my life, like, it was something that the pain was so great that I can see now why people do it, because it overtakes you. It's not something that you can, sometimes you can stop. And it was so scary. And after that, I got on antidepressants for the first time in my life. I called my brother in the middle of the night. I said, I'm not okay. He goes, you're going to go to the doctor tomorrow. You're going to take medicine. And I did. And then they find out I have a really bad ADHD and binge eating. So they put me on antidepressants. They put me on Vyvanse to control the ADHD and the binge eating. And then my cortisol levels were up it was a vicious cycle with that. I wasn't sleeping. So then I was on sleeping medication and I was on Xanax, and I was still getting attacked from my son's father. So it was like that for years. And slowly still, I kept on my spiritual journey, and I'm like, there has to be more. I must be going through this, because there has to be a light at the end of this tunnel. If I'm going through this, there just has to be a reason, and I'm going to keep fighting until I find the reason. And fast forward, I reunited with an old high school friend who took me to my very first ayahuasca ceremony. And the rest is history after that. For me personally, um, she she helped me break away from the shackles that I had been bonded to in this whole human experience, and to be able to break free from pain, from depression, from anxiety, from worthlessness, from a lot of different things that have helped me now step into the human experience and enjoy it for what it is, and continue the search for more, but on the other side now. So it's been a long road, but we're on the other side now. Well, the very first one, it was one weekend with two ceremonies. So that first weekend, she got to the core of why I was the way I was and why I had fallen into this abusive relationship. Um, and the reason I went into ayahuasca was because I had been searching for years on how to attend, because I had this feeling like that's going to help me, but I sometimes it's so hard to find a place, and a safe place at that matter. But I went in with the intention of healing whatever it is she needed to heal. And at that time, I wanted to heal the relationship with my son's father, because I felt that that was what was holding me back. But she didn't start there. She started with my childhood. And then that kind of opened the door to so many different things of why I had been suffering for so long. So the first two ceremonies, but she also showed me the beautiful opposite of what I really truly am at my highest divine self, once I remove all of the traumatic experiences that this human body has gone through. And after that, it wasn't as smooth, because it took me about 6 months to kind of integrate all of it. Especially after sitting for the first time with the medicine, I really took my time to learn the lessons before sitting again with the medicine. But it was smooth in the sense that it helped me to turn my life around very quickly. But the learning lessons, I did take my time with them. And after that, she just left me craving for more, because I knew that there was more healing that needed to be done. There always is, and it's a lifelong journey. And now I sit with her pretty frequently and continue to heal, continue to learn. And every time I think I've learned something, she's like, no, you haven't. When you think you know, you don't know. And I'm building a relationship with her now. Yeah, right now I'm really I would say I really am stepping into my own power, creating that magic. And the way that I'm doing that is I do cacao ceremonies. I do now Sandanga and Hatha ceremonies, and recently had the honor of starting my healing art workshops. And those have been absolutely magical, in the sense that I'm creating these series of art. I'm an artist, and I love painting and drawing and writing poetry. That's the way that I release, and the way that I connect with myself, and the way that I process all of my work. And so I'm doing these healing art workshops where I create, each class is a different element. So earth, water, fire, air. And I bring in all of the qualities of what does it mean to connect with that element, and how can you use that element to go in deeper for the mind, body, and spirit. And for example, on Saturday, we had the earth element. And so the materials that we used for that class were earth-based. It was rocks and it was clay saucers. They're both earth-based elements. So by setting the intention on that earth based material, and then painting what's coming up, like we discussed, the grounding and the foundation of the earth element, and the fertility, the fruition that it brings, and the materialization of the earth element, and how can we put that intuition into that material that you're painting, so that every time you hold it, every time you look at it, it brings those qualities to you. And tomorrow we're doing the fire element, so we'll connect with the fire element and all the qualities of that. And that's where I'm making my magic right now. And it's so beautiful to see it come to life and to fruition, and to see how others are responding to it and what's coming up for them, and helping them on their journey, whether they're just starting or they don't know anything about it. You don't have to be an artist, you don't have to truly know spirituality. It's really just connecting to the elements that we see day to day. Those are very powerful. Every cacao facilitator and every cacao ceremony is completely different. There's different energies. Everybody's energy comes to the cacao ceremony. Everybody's ancestors come in, and but I would say for somebody who has never had a cacao ceremony, I would say your heart's going to be opened. And cacao is a very heart-opening medicine. But it's going to, when you drink it, it's going to evoke emotions that you probably haven't felt before. It's probably the easiest way to put it. Even for somebody who has drank cacao before, I would say come in again with probably no expectations, but with the knowing that there may be some emotions that will come up, whether good or uncomfortable, because nothing's really bad, but maybe uncomfortable. But whatever comes up is it's needing your awareness to kind of observe it and see, and whatever it is coming up. Well, that's in terms of what they will actually be feeling during the ceremony. Is, I would say, just expect emotions to come up. In terms of what the actual ceremony is like, I like to call in the 4 directions for opening the space. It's a sacred medicine, so I love to give it the respect that it deserves. So there will be calling in of the 4 directions to guard the space, and that's north, south, east, west, and calling of the all of our ancestors to help us guide the way into the ceremony, because they've been here before, they know the way. So maybe to be prepared to hear those words or those terminologies in opening the space for ceremony. And then I go into teachings, some topics for that ceremony. Each ceremony is different. There's times where we've touched on topics of self-love. There's times where we've touched on topics of inner child. We've touched topics of fear, and we listen to music. And each song, I ask them to sit with the medicine and to see what comes up. And that's when the emotions start coming up. That's when kind of everything starts, the heart opens and things start coming out, and also things start going in, messages and downloads and insights. And we do about 3 or 4 songs, and each song I ask them to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I do cleansing too, as everybody's laying down during the last 3, the 3rd or 4th song. If I feel intuitively that somebody's needing some assistance, I go and kind of put my hands on them, and that has helped some people like release some energy or be able to receive a certain message. And at the end, I close space and I ask for some shares, whoever is feeling called to share kind of what came up. And usually everybody's really eager to share because a lot has come up, a lot of realizations or things that they remembered from, or they didn't remember from when they were children, or some of them, those who have experienced cacao before, or other types of ceremonies, they'll connect the dots between that cacao ceremony and, let's say, an ayahuasca ceremony. But those that have never had cacao, for example, at the recent retreat that we did with Align Your Soul retreats, a lot of the women there, it was their first cacao ceremony, and those were the ones that shared the most. They were like, I wasn't expecting all of this to come up. So those are usually the ones that are really eager for share time, because they're very excited, like something happened and I can't quite explain it and I want to talk about it. That's usually kind of how it goes. Yeah. What I would like people to know, and something that I've been seeing and feeling recently, is there's a lot more people that are going to have pulls and almost magnetic pulls and awakenings to this human experience. And they're gonna, I would want to share that they may start to experience, thoughts, feelings, emotions coming out of nowhere, perhaps. May start to question a lot, may start to seek more support and guidance. I've been seeing this a lot, and I've been feeling it. And I would want them to know that it's time, and that the alarm is ringing. And it's kind of like when the alarm rings on our phone, and it's like you've hit snooze button a lot. But it's time to open your eyes, and I think a lot of us that have been in this space of healing or light working, or however you may want to put it, is we're a bit more ready than we were before. I think also a lot of us have been finding a lot more community and a lot more support for this time that's coming. So we're all kind of, all of us that have been through a little bit more, and that maybe know a little bit more than those that are hitting the snooze button on their human phone, are ready to help assist in any way. But I would say I have been feeling that call for a while now, like, hey, there's more coming, and I see it. I've been seeing it a lot in my ceremonies and in the workshops and the medicine circles that I've been sitting, and it's larger numbers of people that are sitting and saying, I don't know why I'm here, but I'm here, or I've been feeling this and I need help, I don't know what to do, and I'm seeing it. And so I just want to share, if anybody's listening to this, is if you're feeling certain things, it's, don't feel alone, don't feel like you're going crazy. I know I did once. But it's probably time to hit the last snooze, and I think we're all ready to help in any way. It's the greatest honor and gift that when one person graduates, quote unquote, one of us in any type of healing aspect, and say, hey, not graduating, but saying, hey, I can help you with this, but so-and-so can help you with this, and so-and-so can help you with this, and so-and-so can help you with this. And we're all just triaging, right? Because I'm a nurse, so we need all hands on deck. That's how I feel. But it's like each hand does something different. And to be able to, all of us, be of service to each other, to ourselves, and to those that are just maybe starting any type of healing journey. It doesn't even have to be spiritual. Any type of healing for the human body, the human mind, the human experience is imperative, I think. Yeah. I would say some fears would be fear of the unknown, fear that they may be too comfortable where they're at and they don't want to move into a place of discomfort because of what they hear, because of what they see, which may not be true because it's all the perception of how they're hearing and the perception of what they're seeing. It's not their true experience. But I went through this. But maybe I think the biggest fears is fear of feeling discomfort. And I would say you may be feeling discomfort already. But with this discomfort, I would say I'll probably stay in that place for a very long time. The other side be some discomfort, but it has relief too. Not that this side doesn't, but it's different. And I would say fear. It was something I've received a message about fear is a lot of it is just made up in our head, mainly from unprocessed traumas that start to create these webs of more fear, and then it just starts to grow out of control. But when we quiet the mind, we realize that fear wasn't there. It was an illusion made from us. I would say the discomfort that they're feeling may get to a point. It may not. May get to a point where it's too big or too strong to avoid, and then they'll hit the snooze for the last time. Yeah, but I think that's what helped me. For example, when I was wanting to walk away from my very first ceremony, my very first ayahuasca ceremony, I almost didn't go because the last month I was telling my friend, I had already booked it, and I was like, no, I think I'm good. I think I've been doing better. I've been better than I was 4 years ago, and I'm really comfortable where I'm at. And like, what if this makes it worse? And I was very wrong. And he said to me, yes, but you're still, based on our conversations, you still struggle with the same things. And that's when it hit me, and I'm like, he's right. Like, I still struggle with the same things. And I've always been a pretty fearless person in a way. In other ways, I haven't. And so I was like, well, this can't be any worse than where I've been. So I'm just going to go. And I went, and I'm glad I did. But yeah. Come from a Christian Catholic background. So all this woo stuff was frowned upon in my family. It was witchcraft. It was the work of the devil. It was, and it took time for my family to understand that it wasn't that. But I struggled with it a lot because I felt that this is where I was being pulled years ago, and I stopped myself several times because of what my family would think if I stepped away from the church, if I stepped away from my entire religion-based background. And it got to the point where I said, this is the hell to what they think. This is about me. And I still, very much believe in Christ and my own way now of different teachings I've received, but it was never about religion. It was about, it is about our true relationship with ourselves and with our creator, and he's known, or she's known, for many different names in many different religions, but I think ultimately it all points to the same thing. It's the relationship with the true essence and divine self that we are, and with our creator. And ultimately I heard this recently from a friend, ultimately to the eternal path of doing the right thing. And I would say if people are on the fence between religion, is really understanding that there is no judgment in terms of what you're studying or what you're learning to be a better human being. The judgment is human based, it's placed upon ourselves, and really ultimately doing what is best for you. The negativity or the hate or however word you want to use will always be there. It's, what do you need to do for you? You can't please your entire family. And it's easier said than done, for sure. But I think religion, the word religion, in my opinion, has created a lot of separation between the true teachings of this human experience and then all the other religions that have existed. I think that has been a big problem for our experience here on Earth. Yeah, it's created a lot of division. I will probably say to them what my teacher says to me whenever I'm really afraid. And whenever my biggest fears have come to face me face to face. She's said to me, and then what? Okay, she'll tell me, okay, you just said that you have a fear that this might happen. And then what? When I look at her, she said, well, she'll say to me, are you still going to be the same? Are you going to be okay? And I said, yes. Okay. And for me at least, it's something that I always think about whenever I'm feeling something. I'm like, then what? I'll still be fine. Like, it might hurt a little bit or it might be uncomfortable, but it'll pass just like everything else. And that has helped me face a lot of fears. And most of those fears I've made up in my head. So circling back to kind of what I was saying earlier, a lot of fears that we fear are fears that we are creating. And so when we say the words, so what, it's almost like it stops fear in its tracks from growing and spreading. And it's almost like you find yourself and then you tell fear, okay, well, so what, you're here. And fear's like, okay, I guess I can't grow any bigger. And then you keep walking. And in fact, I had a mushroom ceremony once with myself, and my biggest fear came to me, which was I had a vision of my biggest fear was losing my son, like dying or something. That's my biggest fear. And that's how life has helped me work through fear, because I have this fear. Every parent does. And I remember being in this ceremony, and I will never forget this. And I'm standing there, and I had this vision of fear coming to me, and it was this black shadow. And it starts digging itself in different crevices of my brain, different doors, and it goes there and it opens the door, and as soon as I have more thoughts of that fear, it grows. And then there's another fear. So let's think of all the fears that we have. And so it starts making a home in our brain with, like, let's say fear of spiders, fear of drowning, fear of people, like public speaking. Like, let's just think of all the fears that we have. And so they're all there, and it's growing like arms and legs, and I'm looking at it. And all of a sudden fear, and I wrote this down because, again, this is another thing that has helped me. Fear says, I don't exist. You're creating me right now. And I stood back and I'm like, oh my God, this is the more that you think of me, the more that I grow. And I'll never forget these words. Fear said, dance with me and I'll show you that I don't exist. And so and then the music starts playing. So I started dancing. And all of a sudden, the shadow, the black shadow that was all my fears, it starts doing this. And so if I moved this way, the fear moved this way. If I moved this way, like whatever I was doing, it was mimicking me. And it said, you see, I don't exist. Whatever you're doing, I'm doing. Whatever you're creating, I'm creating. So dance with me. If you dance, I disappear. And all of a sudden it went away, like the shadow. And it was so profound, because whenever I catch myself in moments of fear, I think of that presence, and I think of what my teacher said. Okay, I'll dance with you. I'll dance with you. And I'm dancing. All of a sudden, I'm like, it goes away.
I will ask you, since you had to pass through fear to come from really a place of just desperate heaviness just a few years ago, the changes that you had to go through. And if I could have asked you back then a question that you could answer now, what's the worst that can happen? So it's almost like we're going back in time, and I'm going to pose the question to you back then, who you were back then, not barely even taking a step towards this journey, just feeling the whole heaviness, the darkness of it all, the futility of it all. And I ask you, what's the worst that can happen, Maria? And now have yourself now answer her back.
That's such a beautiful question. My heart's beating so fast. I would answer, there's no worse place than where you are right now.
Oh my God! I got chills here.
I'm like shaking. My heart's beating so fast. I would tell her, I would grab her face, and I would tell her, there's no worse place than where you are right now. Keep going.
Yeah. So we're afraid to move forward, not knowing that this is the worst place. This is the greatest.
This is the worst place.
We're living it.
We're living it. Like, and that's what fear is. We're fearing moving forward, knowing we are already stuck in the worst place possible. So it was the most beautiful question I've ever been asked on this whole journey, to be quite honest with you. That's why my heart was beating so fast. I've been asked some questions, but it's to be able to go back. It was another interview last week. I was asked a similar question, but not that specific. It was more like, who were you before the trauma? So that one I had to answer. Also, I had to go back in time. But this one is, it was pretty deep. It was pretty powerful. But you're right. There's no worse place than where we are right now. I remember in a movie, they said, walking in shores, something along the lines of walking in shores that you stay alive, because you're continuing to walk. You're not staying in that same place. So wherever it is you're walking, just take another step. This once, and I always think about that when I feel lost, and they said, like, how do I know I'm on the right path? And the answer is, you don't know. The path disappears. You make the path. As you take the next step, the next instruction appears. Sometimes we get caught in wanting to create this path, and there is no path.
Yes.
You can have certain intentions with it, but it creates itself as we take the next step. Yeah. I would say to just live in gratitude, even when something challenging comes up, something uncomfortable, to thank it, because it shows you another step, another direction, another instruction, another lesson. Even if it's very challenging to see, to feel, to deal with. Give it its proper gratitude, because it's bringing to our awareness something that we still need to work on, something that we may need to uncover to know what the next step is. And had that not come up, we wouldn't be able to take the next step. And we just discussed how important it is to keep going and keep walking. So sometimes getting stuck is the whole goal is to get unstuck from where we're at. And sometimes that means surrendering and thanking the things that feel and are very uncomfortable, because it's a key to unlock something else. So always start with, thank you for coming to my awareness. Thank you for coming to my awareness, and then go and take care of it, or deal with it, or transmute it, or alchemize it. I wrote this prayer a couple days ago. Actually, speaking on this, I was processing anger, and I didn't want to get stuck there, because I know what it's like to be stuck and not be able to move and take the next step. And I said, I gotta do something with this. And I hadn't felt anger in quite some time. And I was sitting outside, I was doing hape to ground. And this prayer came to me, and I loved it so much. I shared it on my Instagram, but I would love to share it here. And it says, I give my anger, or whatever emotion we're feeling, sadness, greed, anything that's of low vibration, I give my anger to you, Mother Earth, to turn it and transform it into love. I give you my anger to transform it into light. I give you my anger to transform it into power. I give you my anger to transform it into strength. I am unbeatable. I am untouchable. I am unbreakable. And even when I do break, I always come back to you, Mother Earth, for you know of regenerative power. And everything that we feel, we give back to her. She knows how to regenerate. We give her that compost of all of our feelings. She knows what to do with it. She transforms it and creates fertile soil from that. So just give it back to her. Feeling alone is a normal feeling, and it's valid to feel that way, because we are still attached to having a presence around us. I'm currently going through that process. I've lost a lot of friends along this journey, and things are very quiet in my life right now, where it does feel sometimes that I'm alone. But I have to remember that I'm not alone. I have my highest self. I have a legion of angels and ancestors with me, and feeling alone is it's an earthly feeling, because we're humans. We crave connection and touch and connection. But we're not alone in the sense, and there are lonely seasons. There are lonely seasons, and there will be lonely seasons where you'll be left alone for a little while to see what you learn, to see how you handle yourself during those lonely seasons. But there's also seasons of great joy and seasons of a lot of connection. And sometimes there has to be a recalibration of the connections that you're building. So during those lonely seasons, there may be connections that fall off, because you're creating new networks of connections to help you along your journey. That's the whole goal. But even in those lonely seasons, you're not alone. And those seasons where we feel alone is where we have to connect to ourselves the most, because that is where most of our potent and highest lessons come from, because you can't have that interference sometimes. And so you have to be, it's almost like God or the universe is making sure that you're being a disciplined student of whatever it is you're supposed to be learning without the interference. So it's a process. It's a process, but you're not going to be alone forever. It's just a season, like everything. Yeah.
I wanted to thank you, for taking the time to let us sit with you, get to know your journey, that you are out there dancing, and
Yes.
that we can come and dance with you, because you've created space in different ways for people to connect with you. I thank you for
Thank you.
even allowing these moments to happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, because it helps us both kind of remind each other of why we're doing what we're doing, and to step out of our comfort zone. Because this is only the second time I've shared my story. Thank you for everything that you said, because it's a powerful reminder of just being, and being able to help each other co-create something more. Thank you, Ruba. Thank you so much for putting this together, and just you keep creating such beautiful magic. Don't stop. Don't stop. Keep taking the next step.